Text 19. At death he sees the messenger of Lord of Death come before his eyes, full of wrath and great fear he passes stool and urine. There are two kinds of transmigration of a living entity. After passing away from the present body, one kind of transmigration is to control of sinful activities is known as Yamraj, and another is to go to higher planes up to Vaikuntha. Here Lord Kapiladeva describes how a person engaged in activities of sense gratification to maintain a family are treated by the messenger of Yamraj called Yamdutas. At the time of death, the Yamdutas become the custodians of those persons who have strongly gratified their senses, take charge of the dying man and take him to planet where Yamraj resides. The conditions there are described in the following verses. Text 20. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, person engaged in criminal sense gratification is arrested by the Yamdutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. Purport. Every living entity is covered by a subtle body and gross body. The subtle body is covering of mind, intelligence, ego and consciousness. It is said in scriptures that the constables of Yamraj cover the subtle body of the culprit and take him to the abode of Yamraj, punished in a way that he is able to tolerate. He does not die from the punishment, because if he died, then who would suffer the punishment? It is not the business of the constables of Yamraj to put one to death. In fact, it is not possible to kill a living entity because factually he is eternal. He simply has to suffer the consequences of his activities of sense gratification. The process of punishment is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Formerly, the king's men would take a criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, the king's constables would take him out in the water and would allow him to breathe for some time, and then would again dunk him in the water to suffocate. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamraj, as will be described in the following verses. Text 21. When carried by the constables of Yamraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of life. He is thus terribly distressed. It appears from this verse that while passing away from this planet to the planet of Yamraj, the culprit arrested by Yamraj constable meet many dogs, which bark and bite just to remind him of his criminal activities of sense gratification. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that one becomes almost blind and is bereft of all sense when he is infatuated by the desire for sense gratification. He forgets everything. Man is bereft of all intelligence when he has too attached by sense gratification, and he forgets that he has to suffer the consequences also. Here the chance of recounting his activities of sense gratification is given by dogs engaged by Yamraj. While we live in the gross body, such activities of sense gratification are encouraged even by modern governments. In many states all over the world, the government encourages such activities by pushing birth control. Women are supplied pills and they are allowed to go in a clinical laboratory to get assistance for abortions. This is going on as a result of sense gratification. Actually, sex is meant for begetting a god child, but because people have no control over their senses, there is no institution to train them to control the senses. The poor people fall victim to the criminal offences of sense gratification. They are punished after death, as described in the passages of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Text 22 to 24. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through the roads of hot sand and with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by constable because of his inability to walk. He is infected by hunger and thirst, but unfortunately there is no drinking water, no shelter and no place for rest on the road. While passing on that road out to the abode of Yamraj, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconscious. Because he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is quickly brought to the presence of Yamraj. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment he is destined to suffer. Purport. 1 yojana is 8 miles. Thus he has to pass a long road that is as much as 792,000 miles long. So long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constable so that living entity can travel such a long distance quickly, at the same time tolerate the sufferings. The covering, although material is of such 5 elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. To pass 792 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at the speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here we see that criminal passes 792,000 miles within a second only. Although the process is not spiritual but material. Text 25. He is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases he is made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. Purport. The verse and the next verse describe the sinful and living entity's punishment. First description is that the criminal has to eat his own flesh, burning with fire, or allow others to like himself who are present there to eat it. In the last date, where people in concentration camps sometimes ate their own stool, so that there is no wonder that in Yamsadana, the abode of Yamraj, a meat eater who had a very enjoyable life eating others' flesh, is to eat his own flesh. Text 26 to 28. His entrails are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell. Even though he is still alive to see it, and he is subjected to torment by serpents, scorpions, gnats and other creatures that bite him. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops. He is also held captive either in water or in a cave. Men and women whose life are built upon indulgence in illicit sex are put in many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamesira, Tamsira, and Raurava. Purport: the life of all materialistic people who are undergoing severe tribulation in the struggle of existence are based on sex. Therefore, in Vedic civilization, sex is allowed only in a restricted way. It's for married couple, only for begetting children. But when sex is indulged or sense gratification illegally and illicitly, both men and await severe punishment in the world or after that. In this world, there are punishments like violent disease like syphilis or gonorrhea, and in the next life, we see in the passage of Srimad-Bhagavatam, they are put into various kinds of hellish conditions to suffer. In Srimad-Bhagavatam, first chapter, illicit sex is also very much condemned, and it is said that one who produces children by illicit sex is sent to hell. It is confirmed here in Bhagavatam that such offenders are put into hellish conditions of life in Tamsira, Tamsira, and Raurava. Thank you.